All right, on this Garlic Marketing Show, we're going to talk about how one accounting firm, a large accounting firm who had their team being the salespeople, grew 35% in 15 months, which is a massive increase by installing a CRM, how they got that CRM adopted, how they designed it for each of their team members, how they uncovered the huge missed opportunities, and how they get even the most stubborn people to use the CRM. The best techniques in it. On the previous episode, we talked about the CRM foundations, how to choose your accounting CRM, what it means, why adoption is so important, how to get the adoption, and how to choose the right person to install it. On this episode, we're going to show you exactly how it worked for a large firm. And then on the following episode, we're going to tell you how it worked for a small firm to grow at 300%. All right, let's get started. Shortening sales cycle, and at knowing that your sales cycle is getting shorter, I can't tell you how many companies I talk to. I'm like, well, how long is your sales cycle? I'm like, what's your close rate? Right. And they're just guessing. And even like you said, when you have this and you go into these meetings and your pipeline is not right, you can't make any decisions, can you? And tell me a little bit about this large firm. So how big was the firm, and like what was going on with their decision making and their forecasting?
Yeah, so they have about 250 people or so in the firm. I'd say probably about 80 users or so were probably heavy onto the, actually doing the sales piece in addition to implementation. And they had really, complex, like a lot of these firms do. Have your Power BI systems, right? These really complex data systems, and they're pulling from all of these different places. But what was happening was you had information scattered all over. So they used the marketing team was supporting them in putting together a pipeline. And they used sheets, Google Sheets, Smart Sheets, to be able to keep track of everything. And everyone had their own separate spreadsheet, and they were all doing it in their own way. And then they'd come sit together in a meeting. And most of the time it was, hey, where's this one? What's this? I feel like I saw a lead there before. Where'd that one go? And it was everybody just trying to find information rather than actually like discussing it. And the amazing thing about this firm was, because of their size, there were so many relationships that people had in different organizations that overlapped with each other. And they didn't ever have a chance to get to that really cool part of the conversation with each other to say, oh, I know somebody over there. Let me go ahead and connect you. Because they were just trying to even figure out what deal you were working, not necessarily how do we sell this deal better. So they ended up building this whole process on how they were communicating with each other and working with each other and selling this, that really transformed how their business was operating, and how they were able to sell and support their clients.
And like when you look at that and like with them, you go in there and you start to get stuff fixed. How fast do they start to see some result? Like with them, how fast did they see a result?
Yeah. So with them, they were not a 30-day implementation. And
Yeah.
mainly because a lot of these large firms have some other proprietary software, something that they're using. And so for us, it was really important that we got them connected with their third-party software. And we really did a lot of customization to make everyone feel super comfortable with the system, because we were dealing with just so many users in here. So we spent a long time building it up. Once we turned the users onto the system, I mean, it was like a light switch got flipped on. The way that we were able to start to pull together the pipeline data and pull together the metrics and see these amazing dashboards, and just it was, like I said, it was like a light switch. Like very quickly, once they actually started using the system and putting the data in, could we see it? Now, the 12 months of implementation leading up to that, we were really seeing, we saw a lot of actually cool process changes come out of it, right? So even though you're saying, oh, I'm waiting for a software system for 12 months, well, you can start implementing process changes that are really going to benefit your organization and see gaps that exist in your company's process when you start to evaluate the technology needs that you have. And so that's a really cool bonus that comes out of this, especially when, working with us, when we've got us, our mindset as a CRO and not just as the technologist, we're going and thinking about all those other aspects that come in. And it's just amazing how much you can see, those incremental growth factors even before they started using the system.
So can you give me an example of like one of those things that like one of the processes that you implemented that maybe so people can understand, like from an accounting firm side, that maybe a technologist would have looked at differently, and that
Mhm.
being your CRO background, your sales background, you said this is the way we're going to do it, that maybe wouldn't have been that way.
Sure. So a lot of times with technologists, you tell them, okay, here's how we do something. So, you get a referral and then you add the referral into the system. And then you're going to put them in a pipeline and you're going to work it through, right? And you can list out these requirements and they're going to build you a beautiful system that matches those requirements. Well, some of the other things we think about are, well, um, what's your communication strategy with your referral source? How do you treat your referral source in other regards? What does your communication and follow up look like afterwards? Well, we want you to, one, after you've sold someone, you should be communicating with them regularly
Yeah.
because they could be your next referral source because you want to deliver exceptional customer service. And that might not be part of it, right? Because you're like, well, we meet with them when we're delivering on the work, but to reach out to them with no other reason, not to, just to check in and make sure things are happening, not because we're going to be working on your taxes today, or not because we're going to be rebalancing something in your books today and we need to discuss it. Just because you want to check in and say, hey, how are things going for you? Has anything changed in your business that's not coming up otherwise that we want to talk about? And just doing that touch point. But with that referral, the person who sent the referral to you, if you're doing a quarterly check-in with them, chances are pretty good you're going to get more referrals than if you don't ever reach out to them again. Sometimes they'll just keep coming, right? Because you're the only accounting firm that they know. But other times, you need more than that. And so we look at, again, that full life cycle. What matters to the client? What matters to those referral prospects? And how do we make this easier for you? Well, I can shoot you an email every time this happens. That's what the company wanted. They wanted people to be notified every time something was happening. Anyone who has ever connected to any sort of technology in the system, technology system before knows when those emails start coming, you just click archive, 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 or spam, spam, because they come so fast and it's just flooding your email box. And most of us have email fatigue as it is. If you are driving someone and saying, hey, I'm going to push all the data to you in email, you don't ever have to log into the system. What good is that? I want you to log into the system. I need you to be in the system every day. So by adding it as tasks in the system, making it as part of their to-do list that they come in first thing, you check all your tasks that you have coming up. Now I go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's already been 3 months since the last time I talked to Frank. I better call him again, right? Those types of things are just showing up right there on the screen for you. It's amazing how quickly things will go during that busy time of the year, right?
Yeah.
March, April, it's a blur. All of a sudden, you're like, it's the middle of the summer and I haven't talked to anybody. The system will help you not miss those.
It's so important. We talk about it so many times on the show, but Joey Coleman's book, Never Lose a Customer Again, talked about, a study by Harvard, and a 5% increase in customer satisfaction leads to 25 to 100% increase in profits. And in what does that say, like with this company, what is that increased touch point? What, how did they feel it?
Yeah. So, one of the really cool things that we've put into place actually for them, and we do with a lot of our clients, is NPS scores, right? What is measured gets improved, right? And so, if you don't really know the satisfaction score, it's a gut feel thing, right? Well, I'm pretty sure they're happy. They keep coming back every year. That's how a lot, especially the smaller firms, are operating, right?
Hmm.
Well, I'll send out my organizers at the end of the year and hope that everybody's gonna renew and come back in for more tax time. Or, we're on a monthly accounting basis and I keep doing the work and they keep paying me. So it seems like it's a good relationship. But you don't really know. And so by starting to measure this, by putting out these NPS scores, by communicating more regularly with the clients, you start to see those increases. And it does make a huge difference. I mean, I think the only way that you can achieve 35% growth is not just by selling more, right, to brand new clients. It's not by throwing more dollars at marketing. All of those things help, but those alone are not going to do it. You need to really make sure that your existing customers are satisfied. They're going to be your biggest cheerleaders. I always tell people I feel like hiring an accounting firm, it's like opening up the underwear drawer, right? It can be embarrassing for companies. It's intimate, it's intense. They're looking at all of your books, and a lot of people's books are messy, right? And they need to feel like they can trust the person that they're doing this with. So who do they know? They ask somebody else that they trust. Those are going to be your existing clients. They need to really love you and care that and want to give you more clients and really trust you in order to tell somebody else, hey, go open that drawer and let them look inside.
No, I mean, and yeah, we talk about it all the time because people forget that sales doesn't end at the signing of the contract, does it?
It's just the beginning in some aspects, right? If you are a relationship based firm, I feel like it's just the beginning. That was just the tip of the iceberg sale, right? There's so much more that can come from that. And customer retention is huge, right? If you've got an accounting services client, they're paying you each month, right? You want them to continue coming back month after month. Not because they're in an obligation contract, but because they really love working with you, and they trust you to continue doing the best for them.
And with this, I want to talk about forecasting a little bit because I think this is the big opportunity for a lot of these companies too. On top of that, like, because obviously you're increasing revenue, but you can make some informed decisions, what we talked about. But with this company, you've got that big of a firm, and I'm guessing, because I've worked with a lot of accountants, no offense accountants, that they're not very forward thinking, fast adopters. So you probably had some stubbornness and adoption issues to overcome in the company.
There was definitely adoption challenges that we had. There were definitely some modifications that we had to make to the system that did make it more customized than a standard system would be. And this is valuable because it did get much better user adoption. It was easier for them to understand, it was easy for them to work with, it was easier for them to trust, right? So that cycle to get, 65 to 80 people like up and on board and working on it like literally overnight. We were like, "Okay, we're shutting down your old system on Friday. No more spreadsheets as of Friday. Like Monday morning you're using this system and it's feeding your financial system and this is what you're doing." And to be able to get that many people to go, okay, this is it, all at once, you really have to make a lot of configuration accommodations. Their system is a little more heavily customized, which is fantastic because it works perfectly for them. It gives them exactly what they need. The challenge is it does make it a little bit harder to scale and grow. So I always tell people when you are looking for customizing your system and making it better, so many people get caught up in the 10%, the exceptions, right? Well, what if this happens? What if this? Let's build for this, but what if that? When you are constantly building for the 10%, you are going to end up with this weird Frankenstein model that no one can actually accommodate or work within because you click something and you run into an error. You can't do this and you can't make it as smooth and efficient as you need. So, um, stop trying to solve for the 10%, focus on the 90%, focus on that big part. That's what you should be automating. The other ones, those exceptions, you have more than enough time on your hands now to be able to handle those exceptions because we've made you so much more efficient with all the standard and with all the rules.
And when you're preparing these people, right? Tell me a little bit about the preparation process, because obviously it's not like you said you flip a switch. This isn't the first time everyone's heard about it going on, right? Hopefully not. Not just walking in going, all right, spreadsheet's gone. So,
Yeah.
You talked a little about interviewing the people. Tell me about that interview process and what that leads to, throughout the process.
Yeah. So when we do these interviews, it's really because we want to understand not what does leadership think the company needs in the system, not, we obviously want leaders to have the information that they need to make those strategic decisions, right? That's how a firm is going to be able to grow, how they're going to know where to invest, where they should spend their marketing dollars. But what we need is the end users to become more effective, more efficient. You can't achieve 30% growth, even 20% growth, and not have made yourself more efficient or did some significant hiring. Either one of those, which can create some operational hurdles, right? And so we have to be able to think about all these aspects of it. You need predictability. You need to work within this. But so everybody needs to be aware and on board and start working together. So definitely those interviews are the key part. What's the most important thing to you? Is the number one thing that I ask. Like, what's your biggest pain point? If I could give you a VA to do something for you, what would that task be? All of these types of things are the type of questions that help us get to the point of like, what do they need to see in the system? What do they want to see in the system? And we find a couple people who are typically leaders within their vertical, within their organization, who will then help encourage others to start using the system. That's a really key component to this, and getting them on board so that they can help encourage and inspire others. Once we start putting these in place, as we're getting them ready to start using the system, we're reviewing their spreadsheets with them, we're reviewing their data, and we're trying to visually make the system align as closely as possible to what they're doing. And all the other cool aspects of a CRM are just operating on the background, right? But it feels comfortable, it feels similar. And then they're able to go in and put it in place. And when we go through training, obviously we don't do the training the day we flip the switch. You're going through that training in advance. They're given a sandbox to start playing around with. Hey, go add some leads, go add some deals. Make sure you're comfortable moving something through before we turn it on, right? Get them hands-on using it, watching the video to implement it, going through the training that we put on, the live training that we do in order to implement it. And all of that leads to success when we do flip that switch and have them start officially using it on day one.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's what you got to do. But I mean, when you talk about 35% growth, it's much harder to just drive 35, to get more leads, right? And that's the sales is the leverage, and getting this working as a leverage. And like I said, all the follow-up and everything working better. Now, once it's going, how do you make sure that people are adopting it and make sure that it is being used properly?
Yeah, so this is where metrics and reporting really come into play. Understanding what those KPIs are, those key performance indicators, those measures that the firm finds important for team members to use. Understand what team members find important for them to use, right? And then we put different parts in the system that essentially help guide people, right? Maybe it's a filter that just gives you an alert. And when you look at it, you can see, oh, I should always have 0 deals without a future activity. And I see a number 8 right there. I got to go and click on that and find the 8 deals that don't have an activity. Or there's a report that's going to show you a number of deals with past due dates. And you can look at those and make sure that you're updating those, right? Because an open deal should never have a date in the past. That's impossible to close something historically, right? So we want to take care of those things. So really just putting in dashboards that are informational and really help the individuals who are doing the selling, and not just dashboards that help the leadership that needs the decisions, right? And that's a way to help them use it. And making sure that people have all the resources, they have someone to turn to. Ideally, they have someone internally that they can go and work with. In this large firm, there was 3 people internally that any user could go to and ask the questions. And then if they needed more, they came to us, right? Those 3 people would come to us and we would work with them. But it is a partnership. It is us working hand in hand with your firm to make sure that this is being implemented successfully the way that you want it, and timely correction. And if I took 5 or 6 days to fix an issue that was preventing somebody from moving a deal forward, they have lost all interest in this system whatsoever, right? It's got to be quick. When you first implement, if you're doing this on your own and somebody presents a problem to you, you've got to fix it quickly, because it is so easy to distrust the system, to lose trust in it. And you've got to really put the right measures in place to prevent that. And we've got decades plus of experience leading to how do you prevent those things from happening, right? Because they've happened to us. We've seen them happen, and we've learned from that. And we hope that everyone else can then learn from, the mistakes that we've seen happen in the past.
Can you give me an example of one of those things that, like we were talking about the technologist before, but I want an example of like one of those things that's a really big roadblock or hump that people don't see, and it happens, but you are able to fix really quickly.
Yeah. So a lot of people who have been in their role for so long and have been doing something for years and years really struggle with growth, right? So if you've got someone who's been at the firm longer, maybe they are kind of a stable person that's in the organization. So I've got another firm who this one woman had been with them for, I think, probably 12 years. And she had developed this beautiful, amazing system on being able to manage the leads and coordinate everything and organize these clients, and made sure that it was working. And it was a great system for her. But as they grew, growth was really, really stifled because this spreadsheet was so robust and she was the only one that really understood it. But all of the individual sales agents had to go in there and use it and update it so that she had the information she needed to then relay back to their parent company. And this just kept creating headaches. So they wanted to put a CRM in place. Got all the salespeople on board. The agents were ready to go. The owner was ready to go. She was not. She could not figure it out, could not work. She felt so inefficient that it was going to cause even more problems. So we actually ended up keeping her spreadsheet. She was, well, almost. She was in Excel. We switched her to Google Sheets because we needed the cloud-based adaptability that could offer instead. And then we integrated it with a CRM system. And the amazing thing that happened then was she continued working from her spreadsheet and the sales agents never had to look at it again. They used the CRM system. She put something in her spreadsheet, it fed to the CRM. They put something in the CRM, it updated back into the spreadsheet. She worked exactly where she needed to be. She was a bottleneck that prevented this company's growth. And they went from 6 to 18 agents in a 6-month period because of the fact that this was this bottleneck that was holding them up so much because there was only so much she could churn out and only so much the agents could do. And it was just absolutely transformative for them because everybody got what they needed without truly having to sacrifice. And those are those like out of the box thinking that we're always looking for. Like, how do we solve this problem that you feel like, I'm sorry, I've got somebody who's really stubborn. It's amazing how stubborn people can be out there. And but it's tough, right? It's tough when you've been doing your job the same way for 12 years to suddenly be told to pivot. But when you grow your firm, people are going to have to pivot. They're going to have to do something differently. So how do we make that as painless as possible? And that's always what I'm thinking about. And coming from a sales background and not just a technology background, I am that end user, right? I had to do it myself. And so how could I make it painless for me? That's what I'm always looking at for my clients.
And I mean, that's fantastic because it's like that adoption is everything, but it allows, now you've got it working and you grow from 6 to 18 agents. You start to get the data in place. You start to able to look and make decisions that you didn't have any clarity into before. Tell me a little bit about like this large company, obviously they have executives making decisions. What types of reports were they using then? And what types of forecasting could they do? And what types of decisions did that lead to?
So, they had that pipeline that I told you about that they were using in Sheets, and it gave them short-term predictability, I would say, because what would happen is as they would have these pipeline meetings, they'd figure out what was closing in the next, week, 2 weeks, right? What was basically there, just waiting for the paperwork to come back kind of a situation. And that would get added in. And so they would see that. Now, a lot of times with accounting firms, you recognize, well, once I get the dollar amount, it's really what comes afterwards. It's what we deliver is really where our money comes from. So they found that it was not super critical to necessarily have all this information in advance, until they had the information in advance. And then they realized how much more powerful it was, right? They felt like they were in an okay position before until they saw how much better it could be. What happened was now that everyone is putting their leads in early, they're having a better idea. They can answer the question, how long is my sales cycle? They can answer the question, what's my conversion rate like, right? And now when they see this in, not only can they review their own metrics and their reporting to determine what that sales cycle is like, but they can leverage some of the system's AI predictability to tell them what that looks like, right? To tell them what they should be expecting coming up here. Because of that, if you are a large firm and you're going to be taking on 35% growth, even as a small firm taking that on, you're going to hit a capacity problem for delivery, right? Your delivery of your services is going to struggle. That might mean customer satisfaction goes down, right? So this is why it's super important to be tracking those NPS scores regularly, because if you're growing like this, you need to know, Are we still delivering to the same quality that we delivered at before? Do we need to add more people? If we start to see that number trickle down at all, maybe that's an indicator that we've hit some capacity issues that are going unrecognized. You're not, in a small company, you got 4 or 5 of you sitting around in an office, you can start to see how stressed people are and how overwhelmed they are. When you've got people spread out all over the country, when you've got 100, 200 employees out there, you don't necessarily have that same finger on the pulse of capacity. And you will start to see that when you have these different indicators in place for yourself.
And so when you can see the capacity and you also can see the pipeline, what are the decisions now you're able to make that you weren't able to make clearly before? Like with this company, what were some of the things that they were able to do right away to help feed that growth, but also make sure it's, because you're right in all the things we talked about, the NPS scores, you have no idea, and you're just like, let's just grow, and then you make a lot of people upset. What are some of the things that they were able to do right away to improve the company?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the really great things about this company was how involved the marketing team was. And they were really involved because now the marketing team actually got to do more, which led to this growth number, right? This was not just like, oh, we flipped on the CRM and they got 35%. Like it helped, but they had to do some more, right? They invested more in marketing, but they knew where to invest it, and they could see the transformation that came from it. They could see the results of those marketing investments because before, you'd get leads coming in, and then you would see like scene missing and then lead closed or lead lost, right? And sometimes not even lead lost, just lead vanish. And so now there's a story in there that scene's no longer missing. They can see what's successful, what's working, and know where to continue investing those dollars. And so they were able to just really start to put the right programs in place, to not only serve their client base better, right? Understand what people wanted. That was a cool feedback that came from having a really effective system, is just seeing what links people are clicking on, what they're engaging with, what do they want more of, what webinars do they want to see more of, what events do they that inspire them to come attend. And they can put more of that content out there because they're able to go and see that feedback now so much easier than they could in the past.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's amazing, because it's all works together, but you have to be able to make the decisions. And obviously they have to make decisions on hiring too, don't they?
You do, absolutely, right? And need to understand when you're looking at hiring just um, when you need it, where you need it, right? And what that looks like. And that's that capacity piece, right? But a lot of times, especially with the smaller firms, I see this, it's the unpredictability. Well, yeah, we did really well and we had a great sales cycle in the past. We had a good quarter. But is that going to really last, right? How many small firms are not believing in their own growth, right? Not believing that it's, their trajectory and not just a blip, right? And so, by being able to have this predictable forecasting and seeing this, you're going to be able to know this isn't a blip. This is where we're going. This is the trajectory of our firm. You can make those hiring decisions with more confidence.
Yeah. It's so important. And so when tell a little bit, like, when did you all know this was working with this firm?
Um, that's a great question. I think there was a couple of different points where we knew it was working. First of all, people were actually putting deals in the pipeline. That was, to me, that was like, woohoo, instant win, right? Because that wasn't because I look at that as a leading indicator, right? You have these leading indicators and lagging indicators, and those lagging indicators are like, oh, we saw more meetings being held. We saw the dollar amounts go up, right? But those leading indicators are the ones that are really valuable for me. People putting leads in. We track the activities, right? What kind of interactions they're having. So there was more phone calls being put in there and tracked. And yeah, somebody said they reached out 4 or 5 times. That was a kind of like, yeah, I think I reached out to them 3 or 4 times before. Well, now you see in the system, actually, you reached out 6 times in order to close that one. And the one you only reached out 4 times to, you didn't close. And actually 3 others you only reached out to 4 times, you didn't close. This one that you reached out to 6 times, 7 times, all of those were closing. Now we're starting to see the difference, right? Now we're starting to see which ones work, what kind of communication strategy is most effective.
And like with this firm, what were some of the changes that they made to that communication strategy?
I think most of it was what's tracked is measured. It goes back to that. It was simply they were tracking it. Not, oh, Big Brother's watching now, right? I mean, I think that's a piece of it, but um even for each individual user, right? It was less about, oh, what does leadership see that I'm doing from an activity? Individual users, sometimes we think like, oh yeah, I've reached out to that one so many times, or I just talked to them last week. And you're like, oh my gosh, it wasn't October last week. We're in mid-December right now, right? Like what is going on? Um, and it's amazing when we're busy how fast things fly and how much we can put a story in our own heads that the data doesn't back up. And so I think for some people, it was just being able to see it right in front of them and they go, oh, there's only 3 touch points on there. I should probably reach out again. Right. Those types of things were helping them, encouraging them to move forward and keep doing more activities and engaging.
And what was your feedback from them when they're like, when did they feel it and go, was a great decision?
Yeah. So, one of the exciting things is we continue to work with them and continue to add on new features. But each one of those steps along the way has been an indicator, right? When they're like, okay, cool, let's go do the next thing. Let's build on to this next project. It's when we see that we're moving to the next step in that roadmap. Early on, I talked about how we build this roadmap, not just for what we want for initial implementation, but that long-term success. That roadmap is based upon firm growth, right? That roadmap that we build out is not just arbitrary, like, okay, we're going to throw this on month 3 and this on month 6. It's based upon when you hit certain thresholds in your business, you need to have other activities taking place in order to support that, right? And so the fact that we're hitting each one of these, right, is an indication. Another thing is we meet with a lot of our clients that have these big, larger implementations. We're meeting with them weekly, sometimes a couple times a week. Well, when they say, hey, I don't think we need to meet weekly anymore, we're like, yes, not because we've got the talent back, but because we know they are feeling independent. They are feeling confident in the system and they are running on their own. And those are huge indicators of wins for us. And then obviously, we always love the praise from our clients. We love it when people are just like, hey, this really worked. We're excited, right? We love it when they get to, shout out and recognize a win that happened. When they get to, say, hey, we just got this huge new marketing bucket we get to spend because we're seeing this predictability and growth. Like all of those things are fun. And I'm sure you see this with your clients, right? When they're like, okay, we've got this pile of money. What do we do next? Right. And now it's like they have some of those answers of what do we do next? And they're able to really put that in place. And each time we hear those types of stories, that's when we know that we've really hit a big win. With our some of our smaller firms that we work with, one of the things that like it just really lights me up was, hey, I paid myself every single month this year. Like, right? Sometimes these founder-led organizations that are small and they've had those what they considered blips, and they're struggling, they've got 4 or 5 people. Sometimes they're not always able to pay themselves full salary consistently, as they're trying to hit that next growth because they're investing in their business, but they're not able to invest back in themselves enough. And so to know that alone, hey, I'm consistently paying myself. I was able to grow and add more employees. Like these are really, really big wins for a lot of small firms.
Yes. And so we'll get into the small firm, but that was great. And but like let's real quick before we get into the small firm, tell me a little bit about how you can get this started in 30 days. Because it seems pretty miraculous.
Oh, the joy of this is I have spent the last 4 years fully invested in building out this model that works for your non-traditional sales organization, right? Whether it is solopreneurs and micropreneurs where the founder is doing sales, but they're not a salesperson, or it is your accounting firms and finance firms where the people who are doing the selling are actually the delivery team, right? They don't have formal sales training and that's not, it's also not their full-time job. A lot of times you're both selling and implementing, doing the operations. So I've spent probably it's decades worth of knowledge coming into play, but 4 years of like tweaking and adjusting and making this system look exactly the way that we want to see it in order to work for organizations like that. So because of all of that time built into it, we can now implement it in 30 days because we have a really strict standards on what we're going to put in place.
Love it. And can you give me a little overview of how that works?
Yeah, so we start off and we provide our clients with basically an interview form. They start off and they fill out this intake, and they'll go in and just give us some basic information. Nothing is required in the form because sometimes you go, I don't have an answer to that. For example, do you have a sales process? Right underneath that it says, if not, don't worry, we've got you covered. Because we do. We've got one in place for you. A lot of them don't have that. But if you do, indicate it, and we're going to make sure to adjust the system accordingly. So they go through the intake process. After that, we'll review it. We'll start to put the core of the system in place, and then we're going to meet with you and we're going to sit down and conduct our kickoff discovery, where we're going to just ask some extra questions, dig in a little bit deeper, understand what we couldn't just take on from an intake from you, and just really get kind of your personal story behind what you need and why you're doing this. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and finish the implementation. And then we go into the training aspect. So you get delivered your system with our set of standard videos on how to work within the system, but then also customized videos. And these are ones that are, you told us something different about your sales process than the standard way. We're going to send you a video that shows you exactly how to do that through the system. We keep the videos between 30 seconds and 3 minutes long. I'm sure you're wondering, how on earth does she does this? She talks so much. How does she make a 30-second video? I have perfected that though. But you get all these great videos that are bite-sized so that you can see exactly what you need to do in the system and how to operate it. And then we provide you any live hands-on training that you need. We make sure that your system is connected and set up and integrated in any way that needed to be done with your emails or any other tools that you're using. And then you're off and good to go from there.
That was an awesome episode. Growing firm 35% is a big deal when you do talk about those large firms, right? That type of growth is very difficult to obtain, and especially when you have a big moving machine. But on the next episode, we're going to talk about small firms, those 1 to 5 person firms, how they're missing huge opportunities during tax season and might be missing out on servicing their biggest prospects and their biggest clients because they don't have these systems in place. How to figure out the right systems, how to install them, and how to make them work for you and your practice, and the exact implementation that Kristen uses to get it done in 30 days. So you can get started and working in 30 days or less. All right, see you on the next episode.